Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends can join in the conversation. Also, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And in the case of Facebook and YouTube, make sure you hit that little bell. That's right, the notification button. If you hit the notification button, then you'll be notified as soon as we go live. And then you can participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. Also want to encourage you, please make it a point to visit fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. It is the place to go to get all of your Pro 2A swag. We're talking t-shirts, we're talking tank tops, we're talking stuff for the significant other or for yourself. Maybe you just want to get something for the home or for the office. Doesn't matter. We've got it for you. But also, if you want to go out and you got to go someplace where you got to wear a mask or you want to wear a mask, either way, let's make sure that that mask communicates, sends the message that you want it to send. Now, the best part about FPCgear.com is that every dollar that you spend goes right back into the fight for a right to keep and bear arms. That means that you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's FPCgear.com. All right, so we all know, there's an election coming up. Pretty soon, we're going to be electing not just at the local levels, at the city council level, at the state level, at the federal level, even all the way up into the White House. We're going to be making some decisions. So it's always good to know or have an idea of exactly where voters are in their particular decisions on various different issues. And for us, we know that that issue predominantly is the Second Amendment. It's the issue that we want to know about. And by the way, the laws and whatnot relating to it. So the National Shooting Sports Foundation actually did a survey of likely voters. Right now, these are all likely voters, and so they did a poll, and they wanted to give us an idea of exactly where do likely voters stand on our issue. So first, let's take a look at who it was that they actually wound up polling. So the first thing that they did was they focused primarily on battleground states. And as you can see, there are certain states that are definitely going to be going red and certain states that are definitely going to be going blue. But the states that right there are kind of turquoise, those are the battleground states where these polls were conducted. All right, so that's vital to know. Now you ask, why is that vital to know? That's because largely that's where a lot of these elections are decided. They're generally decided in the middle, in the battleground states. You kind of know where the states on the right are going to be. You kind of know where the states on the left are going to be. So these are the traditional battleground states where they wound up doing these polls. All right, so let's also take a look at who exactly they polled. So now, of the people that they polled, 94% of them are likely voters. So the first thing that they wanted to find out was, who are these folks? 94% of them are likely voters. Now, once again, this is based on the question that they asked. Probably not necessarily. I don't know that they went back and looked to see, did they vote in 4 out of the last 5 or 5 out of the last 6, which is, probably a better way to determine exactly who is a likely voter. But anyway, so that's how they wound up figuring it out. So let's go on to the next slide. Here we go. Okay. So the first question they asked was, in your opinion, which would have a more immediate impact on gun violence? And 41% said enforcing existing laws, with 38% saying passing new gun laws, and 21% unsure or refused to answer. Now, here's why that's good. What that's basically telling us is that a plurality, not necessarily a majority, but a plurality of likely voters believe that, maybe we should just enforce the laws that we have. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't believe in gun control. It just may be that they believe we don't enforce the laws that we have. Or it may mean that, they're anti-gun control and they'd like to see, they don't want to see any more gun laws. Maybe they're not advocating for the repeal, or maybe that's just not part of the question. But that's kind of where they're at. They're like, let's just enforce the laws that we have on the books right now. Doesn't mean that they like them or dislike them. They're just saying, let's enforce the laws that we have right now. All right, the next question. What do you believe is the most common reason for someone to own a gun? 56% say self or home defense. 22% say hunting. 3% target shooting. 2% collecting. 9% other. 9% unsure or refuse. So this just kind of gives you just a real, I mean, they have a pretty good sense of that's why people buy guns, because when people buy guns, it pretty much makes sense. So they understand kind of the point behind it. So most voters are not caught up in the hunting argument. Well, if it's not good for hunting, then it's not good at all. No, they're not, right? But it also probably tells you that, we don't know how many of these individuals are hardcore gun owners that are active in target shooting and in competitive sports. They're actually part of quote unquote gun culture, right? So that's probably a relatively small percent are involved in gun culture, which means that these are oftentimes are sometimes people who may go train, maybe not. Maybe they're individuals who bought a gun for self-defense, and now it pretty much sits on a shelf somewhere in their closet or sits in a drawer somewhere and rarely sees the light of day. So it doesn't really inform us as to where they are overall on gun laws, but it does at least give you an idea that, at least they get that it's for self-defense and it's useful for self-defense. All right, on to the next. Okay, an increasing number of Americans have purchased firearms for self-protection during these uncertain times. Whether you own a firearm or not, how has your opinion on the right to bear arms changed in this current environment? Now, 36% say that it's gone up. Only 17% said that it's gone down, and 46% said there's been no change. Now, 36% of the people saying that they are more supportive of the right to keep and bear arms, I think that is because a much larger percentage of people are actually exercising their right to keep and bear arms. Right? They've decided, we've already seen all the numbers that show that gun sales, firearm sales have gone through the roof. And if you need anecdotal evidence, just try and pick a gun, a popular gun that you want to buy, and call your local gun store and see if they have it. I'll bet you they don't. That's how popular how many more people have been purchasing firearms. They've seen new firearm purchasers or first-time firearm purchasers have gone through the roof. Now, here's the thing, and this is the other thing, is it's not just about the importance of owning a gun, but the right. Because what they're finding in many cases, if they're in places like California, right, what they're finding is it's a lot harder to exercise that right now. Because or New York or New Jersey, where you have to have a permit to be able to buy a gun. So you got to go get approved for a permit before you can even go buy a gun. And they're finding that, they don't get to exercise their right because of the bureaucracy, because the right in the place in which they live has not been protected as a fundamental right. So for them, it's become even more important. And that's a huge part of that 36%. All right. If you knew a candidate supported gun safety and education programs, would you be more likely or less likely to vote for that candidate? And 73% said yes. Now, this, folks, is a problem. And this is why this is a problem, because anyone who comes out and says that they're supported by Everytown for gun safety, that they support common sense gun laws, all of these folks they tout themselves as being about gun safety, when what they are about is restricting the right to keep and bear arms. What they are about is gun confiscation. They don't care about gun safety. They're not advocating for more classes. They're not advocating for low-cost or no-cost firearms training. They're not advocating for firearms education in schools. No, they're doing the exact opposite. They are restricting the rights. But the problem is that they've been able to take over or kind of control the narrative and the speech and the words and the verbiage. And so they've taken gun safety. Let me clarify. They've taken gun control. They've redefined it as gun safety. Now, the average person hears it and they think, oh, well, it's gun safety. But they don't really necessarily know about the details of what it is that they're proposing. They don't understand that it's actually gun control. And so it's important for us as a part of our conversations to help educate people on that. Make sure that when someone says they're talking about gun safety, that they're actually talking about gun safety, not gun control. All right, moving right along. How effective do you believe a ban on certain semi-automatic sporting rifles would be on reducing crime in your community? 57% said not effective. That's because they understand that less than 3% of crimes are involve rifles at all. Less than 3% of firearms crimes involve rifles at all, let alone semi-automatic sporting rifles. You and I know that, but what this demonstrates is many likely voters know that. Now, unfortunately, not as many as we like. So it's important, once again, that we continue to have these conversations. All right, now, some have proposed a ban on the sale of semi-automatic sporting firearms, which all only fire one round for each trigger pull. Do you favor or oppose such a ban on the sale of semi-automatic sporting firearms? Now, here's why this question is important, because note that it's not just rifles, it's firearms, which includes semi-automatic handguns. 51% oppose, 32% are in favor. And once again, this goes back to the whole issue of helping people to better understand these issues. That once again, at least in the case of the long guns, they are not the ones being used in most where firearms are involved in crimes. Those generally aren't the firearms that are involved in those crimes. Most people, unfortunately, just don't get that. All right, here's another one. Some people believe that there should be a limit on the amount of ammunition that a firearm can hold for self-defense, such as an arbitrary 10-round magazine capacity limit, like we have in California. What impact do you think such a limit would have on reducing criminal violence? 48% say no impact at all, or it would actually increase crime. 19% say a significant impact, moderate impact by 24%. Now, the scary part about that is that means that 43%, it's 43%, and you add the 19 and the 24 together, they believe that it would have an impact on crime if you were to restrict the number of rounds allowed in a magazine. Now, the problem is, once again, criminals don't buy their magazines from the same place that we do. They don't. They get them off the street. And I guarantee you, where there are millions upon millions, if not tens or hundreds of millions of magazines that are out there, most of them are not 10-round or 5-round or 7-round magazines. They're not restricted capacity magazines. And I promise you, if they were to be made illegal, standard capacity magazines were to be made illegal, I guarantee you there would be a black market there would be a black market. Those things would be available. And so the criminals would come into your home with a firearm, and they would have unlimited, well, not unlimited, but they would have standard capacity or high capacity magazines. But you as a law-abiding citizen would not. You would be restricted to your 10 rounds, which I find interesting that law enforcement, by the way, these laws generally do not include law enforcement, but I find it interesting that law enforcement, who the anti-gun community wants us to believe are all firearms experts and expert marksmen, that they need more than 10 rounds. But for some reason, you and I, the novice, untrained civilian, well, we can get by just fine with 10 rounds. But that's just kind of, well, that's a whole nother argument. Anyway, moving right along, do you believe that citizens with a legally owned firearm should be able to choose the type and amount of legal ammunition they want to use? 54% said yes, 36% said no. Once again, these are likely voters, so yeah, you're going to probably have a significant number of anti-gunners in that particular crowd. But it's nice to know that a majority of folks believe that no, you should be able to own as much ammunition and the type of ammunition, and you should be able to have a magazine with the capacity of the ammunition that you want, that you believe is necessary for you to be able to defend yourself. Because ultimately, and I think they get this, ultimately, if you misuse that right, if you abuse that right, and harm others, that you're going to be held accountable. So, folks, the thing that's interesting about this, and the thing that's really caught my eye is that at this point in time, the electorate is probably more pro-gun than most of us would give them credit for. And I think that's an important thing to note. I think that these uncertain times, whether it's the riots that have been taking place or whether it's COVID-19, I just think that more people want to exercise their fundamental right to keep and bear arms, and therefore oppose restrictions to those rights. And now is the time even more for us to help educate those folks on the importance of those rights and to help them to understand how the laws that are currently in place actually infringe on those very rights that they've communicated they want to be able to exercise. So let's take the time to do that. We've got a little over 2 months left before Election Day. Let's make sure that we're educating our friends, our family, who are hopefully likely voters, on why these issues are important and what exactly it means. Because, folks, here's the other thing. A lot of these folks don't realize that there's one candidate who is more pro-gun than the other, or at least more supportive of our issues than the other. I'm not going to say which one it is because we don't endorse candidates here, but I'm going to encourage you to look up both, look up their records, look up what they've done and what they haven't done, and determine which presidential candidate, or not just president, any candidate, city council, county board of supervisors, sheriff, district attorney, state legislator, governor, a state attorney general, whatever's up in where you're at, take a look at their records, find out where they stand on these very, very, very important issues. Even if it's just school board, because I guarantee you, if they're running for school board now, there's a decent chance that they might run for something later. And this is their springboard. So if they happen to be bad on this issue, which is very important to you, I'm sure, because you're watching this, then you want to make sure that they're good on other issues. So now's the time to educate yourself and help educate those around you. You have a sphere of influence. Make sure that you use it. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program, telling your friends about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them because you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.